My name is Nick Taylor. I'm a consultant with Google Cloud Professional Services. I've been with Google just over 2 years now. My role predominantly is helping our large-scale customers with their migration journeys to the cloud. I'm also a co-author of the Google Cloud Adoption Framework, which we'll be talking about today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kuntal Mitra. I'm a technical account manager on the Google Cloud Professional Services team that delivers product and implementation expertise to our customers to help them get the most out of their Google Cloud investments.
Thanks, Kuntal. So let's get started with the presentation. So we talk to business leaders and IT leaders all the time, people who are looking to evaluate public cloud providers and decide whether the cloud is a sensible investment. They're always under pressure to deliver on their digital initiatives and to do it quickly. Competitive pressures mean they have to respond quickly to their customers and partners, and time to value is a massive concern. Not every enterprise can take a prolonged 12 to 18-month migration effort where the benefits only happen at the end. So companies are always looking to kind of drive that as fast as possible. The challenge with that is most companies today are organized and run according to management principles that were designed back when technology was expensive and the cost of experimentation is really high. So those principles funnel information into the hands of a few executive decision makers, which is designed deliberately to minimize risk. And so in most companies, especially large enterprises, skill sets are segregated, engineers, creatives, business people in different teams with different management hierarchies. And there's lots of then management layers in between to check and stop things happening if there are problems. However, in a time when the speed of business transformation is accelerating, moving quickly is a vital component of a healthy product development process. And most companies yet are still deliberately designed to slow things down so that costly mistakes can be avoided. We kind of want to help change that a little bit.
So with this context in mind, that business are under tremendous pressure to innovate faster, but at the same time are also constrained by siloed decision-making and a focus on risk mitigation. So how do you get started? Realistically, we can't even start talking about the how without starting with the question, what do you want this cloud journey to achieve in your enterprise? Cloud could change everything, or it can just simply reduce cost and make things a bit faster. Cloud could create space for transformative interruption, or it can do what you do today, just faster and cheaper. Ultimately, the journey that you get on to get to the cloud will be shaped by how ambitious your objectives are. We like to think about this as a scale, a spectrum, or a journey from tactical to strategic to transformational. So let's explore how your end goals help shape your cloud journey. The first step is defining the approach that you want to undertake when transitioning to the cloud. So here is how we would categorize the levels of different stages or destinations in a potential cloud journey. That is tactical, strategic, and transformational. Tactical being the stage wherein you try to reduce the cost and minimize IT disruption. We like to think about it as just migrating VMs from on-premise to cloud or from one cloud provider to another. Strategic is where we think about increasing the overall value that your IT organization brings to your company. So within strategic, what we like to think about is how do you change your people and processes along with your technology? For example, design cloud-native web apps. Transformational. Transformational is really when you start elevating your IT to a level where it can innovate things rather than just trying to move things from on-premise to the cloud or just trying to change your processes here and there. And again, this is not a linear process. As an organization, you might decide to approach your journey in the cloud in any of these ways. And in layman terms, we like to think about it as tactical being as simple as moving your infrastructure from one place to another. Strategic is all about being able to change your environment and being able to adopt cloud native services and processes. And transformational is all about innovation and inventing new things, where you can take the full advantages of cloud. So now that there is some alignment on the where, let's think about the how. Everyone here already knows that cloud can bring enormous benefits to your enterprise. So I believe that question has already been answered. So let's get to the real question. How do I actually do it? And there are a number of things that an organization would like to consider when moving to the cloud, such as, how will I get there? That is, how am I actually going to get my workloads into the cloud? How will it be safe? Am I really sure that my data is secure, my infrastructure is not going to be manipulated, and nothing bad is going to happen? How can I manage it? That is, how do I manage it, or how do I think about actually what managing in the cloud means? How do I get everyone to use it? That is, how do I organizationally encourage people to adopt the cloud and move their existing workloads over? So there's a tried and trusted principle to all of this. And again, this kind of journey is not just about technology, it's also about people and processes. Let's see how.
Thanks, Kuntal. So as you mentioned, when we think about cloud adoption, it's important to think about the impact on your people and your organizational processes, and not just the technology. Technology is often the easy part. So how do we think about those things? We consider 4 themes as we look at cloud adoption. Those are learn, lead, scale, and secure. And they're the key elements in a cloud adoption. These themes underpin your ability to adopt the cloud at scale. But where do they come from? We're all familiar with the ideas of people, process, and technology. But for us, it's the interface between each of these things where we find the themes of our adoption framework. This is because these are generally the friction points where challenges can occur and where change needs to be effected in order to adopt cloud successfully. For example, people need training on new technologies as you adopt them in the cloud. But more than that, cloud allows new ways of learning. As we mentioned earlier, experimentation used to be expensive, but in the cloud, experimentation is low risk and typically low cost. You can spin up a virtual machine or run a bit of code, build a machine learning model relatively cheaply. Another example, when we say lead, we of course mean a top-down mandate for cloud adoption, but also the agility that this brings to your organization, an environment where experimentation is encouraged and failure is accepted blamelessly. Also, creating a culture of collaboration and sharing experience through a cloud center of excellence can make a huge difference. In some organizations, this might be a team of evangelists, or it could be something much more structured, design authority style team. But that centralized sharing of knowledge and then delegation through the organization is super important. Scale means, of course, the ability to scale workloads in the cloud. We all know that many organizations move to the cloud to try and scale their infrastructure bigger. But it also means things like infrastructure as code, continuous integration, continuous deployment, or CI/CD, and new ways of managing your workloads. So how do you think about designing applications for scale, for resilience in the cloud, and for that kind of ephemeral, simple to deploy nature? And finally, all of this is nothing without security. You need to trust that your data is secure. When configured well, your cloud environment is probably likely to be safer than your on-premise data centers. Gartner, amongst others, cited examples that you are much less likely to be breached as an organization if you're hosted in the cloud. But hosting in the cloud is a very different model to on-premise. And security in the cloud is achieved in a different way. The Google Cloud approach to this is using a zero trust identity-centric model. So rather than protecting all of your infrastructure with a firewall, we protect every call. By default, nothing can talk to each other, and we authenticate and authorize every service. So thinking about that model as you migrate to the cloud is super important. This is just a very quick highlight of the 4 key themes. Underneath those themes, there are 14 epics, each of which provide you with guidance for successful cloud adoption.
So, as Nick just mentioned, and to summarize everything that we went over, Google Cloud Adoption Framework with core themes such as learn, lead, scale, and secure are underpinned by specific measurable work streams that help you scope and structure your cloud adoption program. So as you have seen here, the framework provides you with a map on how to get to where you want to be. As you can see here, our cloud adoption model can help you determine how far do you want to go on your cloud adoption journey. Each measure of maturity, that is tactical, strategic, and transformational, can be used against the 4 themes within our cloud adoption framework that are learn, lead, scale, and secure. Having said that, we do want to emphasize that you need not aim to be transformational across each of these themes. Let your cloud adoption objectives drive your cloud maturity model. So how do we measure cloud maturity? To help you with that, here is a quick glimpse of our upcoming cloud maturity assessment, which can not only help you determine your organization's current state of cloud maturity, but will also guide you on your journey forward with a set of recommendations and action items such that you can migrate your workload into the cloud efficiently and effectively. Look out for more details on the cloud maturity assessment in our follow-up email from Pluralsight. Now, let's understand how Google Cloud Maturity Assessment can help you determine your current state of maturity and help build a robust roadmap to drive it forward based on your objectives. So again, like as we mentioned, Google Cloud Adoption Framework is underpinned by work streams and themes, which equip you with tools you need to figure out where you are today, to identify where you need to invest to achieve your objectives and to measure success over time. So our cloud maturity assessment goes through each of these themes like learn, lead, scale, and secure, and will help you measure where you are, assess where you are, and also align with your business goals or larger cloud organization strategy.
Thanks, Kuntal. So now you've understood your maturity against the adoption framework as an organization. It's important not to get stuck in analysis paralysis. So instead, we say, understand where you are as an organization, understand the objectives that you're trying to meet, and then get started. It's really important to just get moving, find a project, move something to the cloud. We encourage organizations to make it something meaningful, something valuable to your business. Set yourself a lofty goal. As an organization, use the cloud migration as an excuse to really transform something and demonstrate some value to the organization that new ways of working and being more agile will enable. But what might that workload be? The adoption framework helps us understand the capabilities we need to get to the cloud in your organization. But those can kind of apply to any type of workload. You might want to migrate your data warehouse to BigQuery, for example, to adopt machine learning in your supply chain. Or perhaps you might want to move infrastructure and close your data centers. Just conduct a lift and shift migration. Let's have a look at how the adoption framework relates to an infrastructure migration by way of example. We've got a 4-step process for infrastructure migration. This applies whether you've got 50 servers or 50,000 that you want to migrate. We take an agile approach to this kind of migration. First, we discover what you've got. We take an assessment at both a technical and a business level on what applications and services you have and how they depend on each other. We look at, for example, the applications you have deployed. If you have a large estate, we recommend you start with one business line, one location, or one application type to do that discovery, and then build an agile model of migration. So for those applications, you start to plan how you're going to migrate them. You group them into waves and prepare them to be migrated. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And then after migration, no matter the approach, you'll already benefit from the cloud. Reliable, scalable infrastructure, Google's global network, for example, and consistent, scalable monitoring. Many of those things might be challenges that you have on-premise today. However, after getting to the cloud, you can then consider various means of optimization. That might be right-sizing of VMs for cost savings, which can be done automatically. It might be shifting applications from virtual machines to containers, or databases from traditional models to platform offerings like Cloud SQL or BigQuery. So let's have a think about those approaches to migration. Many organizations start with an aspiration to become completely cloud native and to move to an agile model with daily releasing, serverless infrastructure, and a completely automated deployment mechanism. That's a great aspiration, but it will only work if your organization's ready for that. if you have siloed development teams and separate support teams, a traditional blame culture style organization, perhaps annual releases of your applications, and limited collaboration across the organization, you'll typically fail at becoming that kind of cloud native organization. On the other hand, almost anyone can lift and shift legacy infrastructure to the cloud because you continue using the same tooling, the same processes, and not much needs to change. In other words, your cloud maturity depends on your overall approach to migration. Your cloud maturity determines your approach to migration. So by conducting a maturity assessment and using the cloud adoption framework, you can build a roadmap of enablement and organizational change that helps you do that migration. So each of your applications will have a different migration path, but you'll determine your overall strategy and your ability to change based on that level of cloud maturity. Typically, what we also suggest is that you find some early adopters. There's inevitably someone in your organization who is already using cloud in that cloud native way. And we recommend you use those people, help them to level up your organizational maturity and get started with those new ways of working in the cloud. Whilst you're doing that, whilst you're enabling your teams, whilst you're building perhaps new organizational structures, training people how all that works, you can get started by doing a simple lift and shift migration. Perhaps taking some of your legacy applications that aren't likely to change. And you can use tools like our Migrate for Compute Engine tool, which makes it really simple to migrate VMs to GCP or even to convert them into containers. But that's a discussion for another webinar.
To learn more about Google Cloud Adoption Framework and our cloud maturity model, reach out to your Google Cloud account team or check out the subscriptions available at cloud.google.com/adoption-framework. Last but not the least, we would like to thank you all for your time and would be happy to answer any and all questions that you might have.
And it doesn't look like we've gotten any questions that have come in yet, but we can give just a couple of seconds. Also, if you guys could maybe think, are there common questions that you usually get or anything like that? You can speak to those as well.
Yeah, for sure. Whilst we're waiting, I can give some examples. I think many large organizations, as they approach cloud migration, they kind of don't really understand how to design that migration approach, how to kind of really see the benefit and structure that into a kind of phased program. So as I mentioned, I think the common challenge is, how do I really get started? And we recommend doing that maturity assessment is a great kind of way to kickstart that from an organizational level. We see a lot of value in doing that maturity assessment across the organization. It tends to pull out lots of debate inside an organization of exactly what kind of organization you want to be, what kind of technology you want to use, how to sort of what level of change you're comfortable with as an organization. And as Kuntal mentioned, it doesn't necessarily need to be that everyone aspires to be that super cloud native organization. Not everyone necessarily wants to be like Google, right? So I think that's an interesting one. So we have a question that's come in. The question is, what's your approach to people skilling and matching with Pluralsight in some way, I imagine, since they sponsored the webinar? So yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you, Joe. In terms of how we approach that, there's a bunch of different things that we do. So obviously with providers like Pluralsight and others, we offer online training. We also, as Google Cloud, offer professional services and training to organizations to build technical skills in the products. We also offer a bunch of training that's not just technical skill, but it's about things like how to adopt things like site reliability engineering, how to restructure your teams. We also offer quite a lot of training around change management and culture in organizations. As you'd expect, with Google, we have a strong emphasis on things like collaboration and the different behaviors that come with adopting the cloud. So we really try to drive that kind of training, and it's that kind of match across the organization. We tend for our largest customers where we engage as professional services to do a kind of skills and role analysis at the start of these kind of exercises to help you skill up. And Pluralsight's a great example of where to find that training.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much. not sure if we're going to get any of the questions in. So at this point, I just wanted to maybe give you both the opportunity to share one final takeaway, or if kind of out of everything you've shared today, like the most important thing or the thing you'd most like the audience to remember.
Sure. Thanks, Daniel. So one thing I would like to share is when you are migrating to the cloud, just don't migrate to the cloud because it's cheaper and faster, but it's really important to understand your vision and to be able to take full advantages of cloud native solutions that we have to offer. So my suggestion would be understand what your cloud vision is, understand what your goals are, try and align your business goals with your cloud strategy, and then proceed with your cloud adoption journey.
Yeah, thanks, Kuntal. I think I would echo that. For me, I think especially I try and talk to organizations I work with about the way we work inside of Google. Google has a massive focus on collaboration and openness and sharing within the organization and on innovation. And I think you don't necessarily have to adopt all those principles, and they're not necessarily always right for every organization. But leaning into those things, focusing on things like innovation in your organization, how people come up with new business ideas, how people get access to the data that's available inside your organization and the tools you have, that's super important. And going cloud is a great excuse for adopting those things. So I would strongly consider those and use things like our adoption framework as an excuse to then drive that across your organization, drive more of the change that you would always want to see, but perhaps have found difficult to do, and give it a go, basically. That's probably my biggest takeaway.
Awesome. That's great. Just one more quick comment that came in from Joe, who you already addressed his question. He just asked if you had any links for reading up more and learning more on the Google resources. Do you have anything like that you could maybe offer up before we close out here?
For sure, I would say the best place to go is to the Cloud Adoption Framework website. So that's cloud.google.com/adoption-framework. There you'll find a white paper which talks about a lot of the methodology we have today. Also links to white papers and documentation on our approach to change and culture management. There's also jumping off points from there to our training materials as well.
Yep. And to add to it, we'll be soon launching our cloud maturity assessment tool, which should be available on the same web page, which you could use as an individual or work along with your colleagues within the organization and go through the overall assessment and come up with the initial draft of the report of how you should adopt your cloud journey and what are some of the critical pain points from your organization perspective that you need to start working on.